Awesome. Okay, so we are very big on educating people here how to strengthen up muscles. A lot of time they come in with an injury or some type of chronic pain issue, and I used to do a lot of observation with physical therapy. I wanted to do that for a while when I was an undergrad too. I thought I wanted to go to physical therapy as post-grad, and so much of what you see is a lot of stretching for like common things. You see stuff like sciatica, and you can YouTube it, and best thing for it. And a lot of times what comes up is stretching. A lot of the positions that most people hold during the day require them to sit for long amounts of time. So the muscles in the posterior part of the body just sit lengthened out for so long. And I personally like to use like a rubber band analogy to teach people. If I were to take a fresh rubber band, pull it out of a bag, and then pull it apart, it would snap back with really good elasticity. If I were to take that same rubber band, hold it here, let's say typical work day is 8 hours, and I just hold it for 8 hours. When we sit down, most of the muscles in the posterior part, they're sitting stretched and lengthened out. So if they're holding the fibers lengthened out for so long, they're going to lose the elasticity. They don't function exactly like a rubber band, but it's a good analogy to give. So we lose the ability to kind of fire them on command, and it results in a lot of chronic issues, back, knees, hips. So much of it can be attributed to the positions that most people hold during the day. So when they come in here, our first thing that we like to do is educate on why they're having this issue, and we like to teach them to strengthen it. So we don't do a lot of static stretching in here. Most of what we do will be through, I'm jumping around on the page right here, but strength ability is a term. It's like the fourth one down. We like to combine flexibility and strength in the same movement. So more like active ranges of motions. So we're not big on a lot of forward folds. So you won't see anybody in here just kind of laying somebody up on the table on their back, pushing on their legs to open up the hamstrings. We would go to an exercise more like a stiff-legged deadlift maybe, because that's something that requires you to flex the hamstrings as you go down, but then they also have to contract from a lengthened position. So you're working on strength and flexibility in the same motion. We would tend to stick to exercises in that form so we can hit, two birds with one stone. Natural movement and barefoot. Obviously, everybody's barefoot in here right now. If you wouldn't, like Chris said, the skyscraper analogy, skyscraper has to be strong at the base and the foundation. And so we like to have people work out barefoot so that we can strengthen the foundation of our body. Feet are always in contact with the ground when we're doing movement. We have tennis shoes on, like Nikes. I even still wear them. They've done a really good job, though, of going more to there's a lot of flexible, minimalist shoes. But when we have, like, you see little kids running around, most of the time they're running up on their toes. Our natural movement pattern, without them even being taught that way, is to run more towards the forefoot. But we put on these tennis shoes on, and our gait changes from like a midfoot strike to we tend to strike with our heel now. And it's due to the fact that so many people start doing all these athletic movements in these shoes that have a big cushion. So of course, if there's a cushion on the heel, I'm going to go to the more comfortable stance. When I have a pair of Nikes on, it's way more comfortable for me to start walking this way as opposed to up on my toes, and you just look silly doing it. But when you do that, you kind of lose the ability to grasp things from the ground up. You learn the movements better, at least in here, when we're doing this stuff, when you have your feet in contact with the ground and you're able to use the muscles in the bottom of the feet. Most people don't think about it, but we have those flexors and tendons that are at the base of the foot. They get so desensitized when we use shoes that we just kind of get weak from the ground up. So we take people's shoes off. We like to have them work on strength from the ground up, and it just helps the movements overall. It contributes to everything else. Posture, another really big principle that we work on in here. I'll go back again to the position that most people hold during the day, like a seated position. A lot of people are on computer, or we're texting, or we're driving a lot during the day. And how often do our shoulders just kind of have a tendency to kind of slug forward a little bit? And you can even you studying a lot, I know that you have to hold a position where you're just bent over books. I get lazy with it too. When I sit down and read for longer periods of time, I'm draped over the desk like this. leaning on it, I get knots in the back, like near my shoulder blades, and you just feel like you want to do one of these right here because it feels good at the time. But again, I'll go back to the holding the rubber band for too long. If I've been studying for a few hours and I start to get one of those knots in my shoulders and I'm drifted forward here, this feels good, but I'm just exaggerating the motion that I've already been holding for so many hours. So why would I continue to do this? I'll have to continue to do this to get that pain to go away or that discomfort, as opposed to in here, if somebody were to say, I've got this knot in my shoulder blades and I just can't seem to get rid of it, and usually they'll say they do this, or they go lean on something and they pull it, because that relieves the tension. Well, why didn't we just contract the muscle that we've been stretched out for too long? Why didn't we work on here? So we would take somebody from that aspect. We would gear them towards, okay, your rhomboids and lats have been sitting really, really stretched out. Let's work on contracting them so that we can get them to back into the proper anatomical position. You see we've got some of the anatomy charts around here. We teach based off of anatomical position. So you don't see the, I guess you can see the skeleton one better over there. You don't see him drooped forward in the picture. You know, a proper and anatomical position has the breastplate. See how it's kind of geared up this way at an angle? So he's standing here. So if and that anatomical position is right here, if we're not here, something's off if we hold it for too long. Okay, because we're getting out of, this is neutral. This is what neutral should be. Not many people hold this anymore. And a lot of those aches and pains come as a result of that. So we want to teach people to get back to this structure. We use this as a model. So things like the studying, I'll go back to it again because it's relatable to you. I sit too much with my shoulders hunched forward. Everything comes down here. It looks nothing like what this guy's holding. I know this is an exaggerated position, but even if I were to carry that to an upright stance, I may just be looking like this. Does it look absolutely terrible? Nobody would look at me funny, but I could have some pain that you wouldn't even know right in my back because I'm holding this stance right here. I don't open myself up back to an anatomical position. This is naturally where we're designed to be, and not many people hold it anymore. So we'll always go back to this as a teaching tool to just reference this chart and show people this is where we're supposed to be. Not many of us hold this anymore. Let's get to the foundation of why are you in the pain? Most likely as a result of the posture that you hold. So posture is huge here. All this meshes into one. It's not like we teach, everything kind of flows together. You wouldn't work with somebody in here, we're only going to do posture today. We're only going to work on your strength. Everything it has a nice flow to it. So why can't we hold them? Some people might not be able to hold this posture. Why can't they hold it? Because the muscles aren't strong enough, you know. So strength and posture, they go together really well. The flexibility, it's not like we don't want people to be flexible in here. Thanks, buddy. We like to work on the active range of motion. So how often are you going to have to hold your leg up above your head, you know, and walk around in the real world and do things that you want to do? Probably never, okay, unless you're a ballerina. There's no real need to do that if that's not your profession. So why would I force the issue and have you like lay on your back, push on your hamstrings? All we're doing is pulling on that rubber band some more. We're not asking the muscle to do any active motion. Okay, you're having somebody else do the work for you. Why not ask it to go through a normal passive range like a stiff leg deadlift where we unlock the knees and we're here and we're holding good posture? Why not ask it to stretch on the way down so here's flexibility, and then at the same time ask it to contract to an upright position, okay? So that's how all the movements are kind of based around here. Natural movement, we got that. Consistent variety. You've probably learned this just in class. I'm sure have you had exercise prescription at all as a class? I know that they teach, you probably hear that in there, that the body's very adaptable. Okay, so we can't do the same training program for, 6 weeks in a row and then just keep doing that. You'll see results. But if I want to do the same workout in here Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and only do that for a year, I'd get really good at those movements alone, and they probably wouldn't transfer to much else. And your strength would kind of plateau. Even when you're working with special populations. Say you're working on somebody that has really bad balance issues. They've had a stroke, or they have Parkinson's. and you just want to start the first day, you just have them, stand on one leg. Great, fine. But if you only have them practice this and that's it, and they get better at this, and now let's say, all right, now let's start to walk with a narrowed gait. So we don't want you all wide anymore. We want to narrow this up, and we're going to start to walk here. And they can't do it at all. But you've been working with them for 3 months, and they got really good at balancing on the one leg, and now you just want to transition into a more functional pattern, and they can't do it so well. There's no variety. Variety is huge. There's all kinds of exercises that Mike and Sean will talk about more, like just in an assessment that we like to do to show people how you can work on specific large muscle groups, but in such a variety. No workout in here is ever the same for anybody, regardless of the trainer. We always are big on the same principles, but the exercise will generally always be different, regardless of how many times a week they come in. There's people that come in 3 times a week. Every time is completely different for the point of not letting the body adapt to the training that you're doing. Education, I've referenced it a few times. Obviously, you guys are here because maybe you like the fact that as a studio, everybody here has their exercise science degree. It's huge. It's what separates us from any other training place around. There's not really anywhere else around here where it's a requirement to have your exercise science degree as a trainer. The stuff that you learn in school is awesome, and it's a great foundation. But a lot of it, when I first got here, I didn't know how to maybe apply it so much. And there's some things that we do here that might be a little different from what you get out of a biomechanic textbook. I never learned anything other than heel strike in my biomechanic textbook. Like, that was proper gait that they taught. We try to get people away from that in here. We're not saying walk on your tippy toes all the time, but just as an example, we try to get people more to like a midfoot strike. But I didn't learn that in school, and that's okay. And you'll get that education here on the job kind of training. But the foundation that you're building for yourselves right now is so great and separates you so much from so many other trainers that are out there. And it gives you and the client the comfort of knowing that you have that degree to work with. You don't get questioned nearly as much. Not that you're the end-all be-all and that you know everything, but people trust you more. Like Chris said, we have so many different kinds of people that come in here, from 16 to 93-year-olds. And all of them at least recognize and respect the fact that everybody in here has gone through that 4-year degree and the education to help us stand out and apart. But it's a big part of it is being able to convey what you've learned now or up to this point and what you will learn on the job, saying it to your clients in a way that makes sense to them. Nobody really is going to care about the way everything works at a cellular level in the muscles when they're in here. Most people won't, and they don't want to know, and that's okay. But you have to understand that so that you can regurgitate it to them in a simplistic form, because that's what's going to make them want to come back to you, is because, hey, my glutes are really weak and lengthened and stretched out. You know anatomically why and specifically why, but give it to them in a nice simplistic form, and it comes back to them, oh, that makes sense. I really get that. They're going to be more encouraged to want to do the stuff you give them outside of here to help fix their issue. So education is, again, that's what separates us from everything else. It's the foundation of this whole business here. We got assessment protocol.
Yep.
Add anything to that?
What you just said, or the assessment?
No, to what I just said. Education specifically.
No, you did great.
No. Okay.
That makes sense. Our philosophy, kind of cool.
Yeah. Everybody's good.
All right. Well, Sean is going to go over an assessment. Who wants to do the following?